well documented.
Islam, the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple, Circle 7 divinely prepared by the noble prophet Jew Ali, by the guidance of his father God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his father God Allah. At this time I recite the Moorish American prayer, the source from which I draw my strength. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. First off, I'd like to rise, rocking my soul in the bosom of Abraham, giving praise to Allah, the author, the creator, the governor of the world, almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible. I'd like to give honor to Allah's holy and illustrious prophet, noble Drew Ali. I'd like to give honor to Prophet Noble Drew Ali because it was he who reached down into the watery grave of hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harmed to set me back upright on my feet again. I'd like to give honor to the forerunner to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Mosai Garvey. I'd like to give honor to Marcus Mosai Garvey because this brother had to have pure thoughts in order to pave the way for love. I'd like to give honor to all literature pertaining to Islam in the Moorish Science Temple of America. I'd like to give honor to our two flags. I'd like to give honor to all those and honor to all of you that have laid and assist us in this our divine and gigantic mission, the uplifting of fallen humanity. Last but not least, I'd like to give a special honor to Temple 2 here in Portland, Oregon. Moreover, Brother Navi Lynch-Bey. I'd like to give honor to this brother because he's back in the hospital. He's back in the hospital. I'm not going to tell you for what cause. But whatever it is, we pray the spirit of Hezekiah. And praying the spirit of Hezekiah, that brother is going to be all right. At this time, I'd like to read from the Moorish Holy Quran, the book of the seven seals that's talked about in Revelations in your Bible, that none was able to open and read from its sacred pages the messages of purity and love. This evening, I want to read from chapter 41. The title of this chapter is Inconstancy, and it reads on this wise. I read from verse 15, and it says, his life is unequal, his motions are irregular, his soul changeth with the weather. Thus we just had a reading of the Moorish Holy Quran, divinely prepared by our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Islam, today is a blessed day. I read this chapter today because it talked about inconstancy. And we have a brother with us today that's not inconstant. Whatever he did yesterday, he do today. He's not the brother that he was yesterday. And whenever we talk about the Moorish Voice or the Voters Digest, we know one thing about this brother. He's always going to show up. It was told to me that when we had the Marcus Garvey celebration, say, why did you get Bruce and didn't get nobody else? Because it's the only one that I can trust, Bruce. Bruce gonna be here. Bruce is into the community. He's not just doing something just to do it. He's doing something because this is where his passion is. And I honor him so much, too, because I was talking to him earlier about my father and how my father was one of the first Army recruiters in the military and how he done over 30 years. And I showed him a picture of my father and my mother at Alton Cemetery. And I was saying that my father was a recruiter just like he was, so that rubs off. And I honor him because he went through the same training that I went to, and he got a little more because he's a leatherneck. But he done went through some other things. But I'm honored this evening to bring forth someone to you here in Portland, Oregon, going to talk about voting, talk about racism, and talk about any other passion he have that might be conducive to all of our growth and development. We ain't talking about a color, because what color is the spirit? So without further ado, I'd like to call my brother, my friend, and my elder, Brother Bruce Bashar.
Wow, what some remarks. I mean, it was so positive. It just really just got to me, aspect of it. And again, I really appreciate and feel honored, if you will, to be here today with you and speak on his show. And In fact, I've got to reflect back to when he asked me to go and speak on Marcus Garvey, who I'd read about historically, but I'd gotten even more into who Marcus Garvey was when I was given the opportunity to speak at one of the events that he had put on. And it really was a pleasure to gotten into that history and showing this guy who really had leadership. He was outsider, so to speak, from where he was, from all over the place for that matter. But he was just so into his culture and his people, and it was just awesome, you know. So with that and with that introduction, I guess we're talking about voting. In fact, I had a show today on voting, and again, kind of trying to reflect back and the fact that it's so important to get out there and express yourself. Very, very important to express yourself, and hopefully the folks who are visually looking at the show and whatever. Again, I want to just chat for a few minutes or so to talk to you why it's so important. And here I'm sitting up here in Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon. It was probably one of the last areas, if you will, in downtown Portland that the Ku Klux Klan marched, if you will, here in this area. And that was history. That was their history. And that history exists now at the Oregon Historical Society. But when we got down to the voting aspect of it, we were having some of the same issues. I wasn't here that long. I came here as a Marine recruiter in the Portland metropolitan area, and I think about that history. It all talks about voting and being more responsible aspect of it. I didn't know where the blacks were when I came to Portland, Oregon, as a Marine recruiter. I would remind folks that when I got here, I was recruiting out of and residing out of the Gresham area, in Gresham, Oregon, just outside of Portland, and in Portland, but outside of Portland aspect of it. And then eventually I found out that the blacks were residing in northeast Portland, and northeast Portland, as you note, it was considered to be the black community, and but there was no address to it. As long as you had a northeast address on it, and even I looked at northeast, and a lot of it wasn't about just black folks residing in that area. But anyway, the long and short of it all is I spent a number of years here in the Portland metropolitan area, and I've run for office on a number of occasions, and I guess that's where the vote was. You know, I remember running for the first time when I ran for office. I noticed that the black community, which I've known at the time, I think I owned the Portland Observer newspaper. It was kind of interesting. I couldn't get many of the elders in the community to even vote for me, and even giving me the opportunity to go before the house of worship and present my platform to the people. It was so political as far as blacks were concerned. I was running against a gentleman by the name of Wally Priestley, who happens to be a white. He was a white male, but I knew the guy, and you know he had every right to run, and he was running, and I was running. But the idea was to get out the vote, and I campaigned. At the end of the day, it was a close race to begin with, but at the end of the day, he won the election aspect of it. But in all due respect, I did not get the enthusiasm from the blacks that were living here in the Portland metropolitan area. And then I started questioning that. After at one point in time, I was getting a little upset about it. But then as time goes, and I can talk about this today, is how there's this suppression among blacks that are residing here in the city of Portland to not vote. And they do this in different kinds of ways. You know, in most cases, there are certain aspect of it, certain elements in the majority community that make sure that blacks don't get involved in the election process. Maybe not promoting, if you will, especially the media side of it, doesn't promote blacks running for office, doesn't promote the point of organizing a group. At one point in time, they used to have a kind of a debate, i.e., a function where blacks would meet the candidates, and through the years, they were doing this, and then all of a sudden, after a while, they just quit doing it. because in all due respect, there were some very responsible individuals that were running for office. I happen to have been one of those at one point in time, because I've run for office. I've run for several offices. I've run for governor. I've run for state representative here in this area. I've run for Congress against a guy named Earl Blumenauer. Did pretty well. And in all due respect, voting for me was kind of interesting. It was sort of a novelty. I was registered as a Republican at that point in time, and but I got a number of votes across the district, for that matter. I didn't have the money because I did not get the support from the majority community along that particular line. But I got most of my votes from, i.e., a majority community, and didn't get the support in many ways of the so-called black leadership here in the Portland metropolitan area, and because, in all due respect, they weren't leaders. And if you're a leader, that means you're in the position to just either, okay, fine, well, who's coming into my territory? I want to see who this person is, and does this person follow, if you will, the issues that are relevant to our survivorship and who we are. And that's never happened, and that bothers me. Like I said, today, we don't have any of the meet the candidates kind of a situation. It gets so bad that the so-called black media wouldn't even give me the opportunity to get interviewed in the endorsement process. Well, I can pretty well say that the rationale behind that, they had no ideas what the issues were in the community, because they weren't printing the issues of the community. And every so often you see sparks of life about either issues in the community, because we always have Martin Luther King Day, Dr. King Day aspect of it. But in many ways, it wasn't about his travels, Dr. King's travels, and what he meant and whatever. It was more about the economic side of it all. And but you know, I'm just being just factual, because even to this date, I just recently ran for the county, and county district number 2, where Loretta Smith was the sitting person. In fact, she still sits there until the first of the year as the county representative for district number 2, where primarily the African American community reside. It's getting to the point where it's not going to be anymore, because they've talked about the whole issue of gentrification, but you don't see any of the black leaders jumping up and talking about the whole issue of gentrification. And the only way you can do that is to get out and run for office and vote and make sure that it's understandable among candidates, because candidates who are majority candidates understand the nature of the vote aspect of it. But we're just not organized. I mean, the black community and the black citizens in this area are just not, they're pretty well confused, because many of the leaders are pretty well bought off along that particular line, including the media, for that matter. But again, you know, life goes on. You know, I mean, everybody does what they want to do. That's just not where I'm at. My whole thing is to talk, jump to the next level in a more progressive kind of a way. I'm not into I'm a minority. No, I'm not. I'm an American. I'm an American citizen. That's who I am. I fought for this country. I spent my time in Vietnam. I mean, okay? I've been in business. I've made some things happen here. I built a senior citizen complex. I provided housing at one point in time. I mean, and I'm not trying to brag or this, that, and the other, but the whole idea is that, you know, I vote. And I do, and I vote. And a lot of times I vote by running for office. I do this purposely so the majority of the community can see that we've got individuals like myself that are still here, that are here. We got them in the eyes of the young people, and they start off good and very positive. But the education system here in this district, i.e. Portland Public Schools, they're always having problems. Always having problems from the standpoint that it's the lowest graduation rates around the state, for that matter. But as time goes, hopefully that's going to change. Hopefully that'll change during my time, because I ran for office, and I did not get the support of some of these folks who are insider so-called black leaders. And it's really a sad note. And the only excuse is that, in many ways, is that I'm a Republican. Well, a lot of folks don't understand what that means. What do you mean by a Republican? Why am I a Republican? You know, I ran under the Libertarian banner this time around. But because I was able to identify a constituency that I knew that could help me in this particular vote, in this election. And so I did that, and and I didn't finish too badly, if you will, with no money for that matter. And knew that there was no sense in spending any money. That in fact you're not going to get the support. You're not going to get the support from the media. Definitely from the black media. Wasn't even interviewed for the job, and I was very much qualified to run for that particular position. And in fact, it's gotten so bad. And when you hear about the cry about the blacks and about the Democrats and the unions and how blacks and had been very much involved with the unionism and aspect of it. But the entire union complex here in the Portland metropolitan area, for the state for that matter, made sure that they swept me under the rug. They would not give me the time of day. But I worked very, very closely with all of the unions, if you will, here in the city of Portland and the state for that matter. And but again, like I said, that's history. I mean, it keeps going. You don't stop. You just keep on going. And so I could care less about these obstacles. I just go on and set the example, and would challenge anyone that would be willing to sit in this seat that I'm sitting in and go through just kind of a communication and let the person with this show let him ask you the question. Let them answer the question. Why aren't you there? Not about just supporting Bruce. Why can't you support the ideals of another black American? Okay? That's very important. Very important. Whether you agree or disagree. I just did a show on my Oregon Voters Digest. Again, talking about voting, getting out to vote. And I had some folks on. I basically invited, as one would say, I invited Republicans because I couldn't get Democrats to come on the show to talk about the shootings and the killings back in Pittsburgh. Yes, it was a Jewish community. Some 11 folks were shot by another individuals. 2 to 1 mentally ill. Oh, yes, it's not an excuse. We got a problem with the mentally ill all over the place, that matter. And a lot of times that mental illness gets fueled by the media and talk show hosts. Think about it. The idea is to basically direct you, if you will, to vote their particular way, and a lot of times that way is that the only way they can get your attention is to talk about negative news. Negative is more positive than positive. It's unfortunate. Look at what's happening right now in our country. Right now, I say our country. That's right. I own a piece of this turf. That's me. That's right. And you should feel the same way if you're here. And you should be responsible enough to basically listen to the people who are coming to knocking on your door, asking you for a vote, regardless of who they are. As I indicated today, I had several Republicans on. I couldn't get the Democrats to come. Democrats like here in this area, like Earl Blumenauer, any folks along that line, got me? And even my former dear friend, Ron Wyden. I've known Ron for years, and I like the guy personally, but no, politically, we just don't speak the same language. But hey, I'm open. I'm not anti-Democrat or anti-Republican. The fact of the matter is, we as Black Americans got to be more progressive and just fight a little harder. That's all. Put your name on the dotted line and run for office, and stay focused on the issues in that area. Again, same old deal. We talked again, like I said, I had Fred Stewart on and a guy by the name of Mark Callahan, who's running for Congress, and another guy, a guy named Tom Harrison, who's running for Congress against Earl Blumenauer. And I think that's good. That's good. And they were there. They weren't afraid to talk about the issue of hate and racism here in our city, in our state, because the only way we're going to get to the point where we can say, okay, fine, the negatives are not going to outsell the positive, is that we got to talk about it. So we got to talk about it. Yes, we got problems, but we got to talk about it. And so let's make sure we can kind of set that aside and look at the person who's running to see whether or not they're able to deal with the issues of livelihood and clean streets and all kinds of good stuff that we all are looking for. Got me a roof over our head, a job. You need a job. You got to have a job. So you got to get out there and vote. And the only way you're going to do that, you got so many people that are running for office, so you got to entertain the idea of talking to these people and finding out who they are. That's the only way you can find it. But if you listen with the negative side, like now where we are sitting today, is that everybody's up in arms, in all due respect of this whole issue, the killings. The man, this one particular person, he shot and killed 11 people in a Jewish synagogue. 11 people. Now the whole world has stopped, so to speak. But he's facing 25 counts. And saying, hey, he could be facing the death squad, if you will, in that man. Okay, in the execution. But now, you know, when there's a certain sentiment and segment of our population that feel, well, we don't believe in that deal. We don't believe in the execution, if you will, of anybody for that matter. Well, 11 people died. What do you do? Where's the deterrent? How do you get people motivated to say, hey, look, I'm not going to do that anymore. We're all equipped with our weapons, and I ain't giving them away. It's part of the Constitution. Those are the rules and the regs. And the only way you can change those, you got to vote for it. Okay? You got to get out there and vote. So, what is the deterrent? We got to vote for some sort of a platform. You got to basically talk to these leaders that are running for office right now, and getting a feel for how do they feel about it. How did this one individual get to the point where he would pick up a weapon and go in a synagogue, or if not that, like Atlanta, did the same thing. Another male, just so happened to be a white male, went in and shot people while they were praying. Black people in Atlanta. These white folks and kids, and we've been having shootings all over the place. But how do we get to that person? Was it about a job? Was it mentally ill? Was there some stress? Was it PTSD? Well, the fact of the matter is, you don't want to keep an ill person out on the street. We're fighting that issue right now here in the city of Portland for homelessness. First thing is a job. Second thing is that they keep talking about housing. Well, they're not talking about housing for someone who can't pay the rent. They're talking about housing for people who can pay rent. Bottom line. So, if we're going to deal with this issue of homelessness, then let's deal with it. My platform when I was running for District Number 2 was about Wapato. There was a facility that was built years ago. It was just vacant. It had a tune of about $60, $70 million at the time, way back when. And then during the time that I ran for office, they sold it for $5 million. Left $60 to $70 million on the table. The property's worth, just the way it was standing, if you will, as far as I was concerned, was about $40 million. How was they able to sell it to someone for $5 million? We fought it, the whole 9 yards. The county should never, on my platform, I was saying the county should not have sold it. It was part of the system. But the whole idea was to use it as shelter for the weather, for that matter, to vet people, find out who's on the street. How many people were looking for jobs? How many people just walking out of the home because they couldn't afford the taxes on the house? Or if not that, they just couldn't afford the rent. We need to know that. We have a housing authority of Portland right here in this city. We've never audited it. We don't audit it. Because some people got in from the standpoint of saying, well, I'm unemployed and I've got Social Security, or if not that, I got a small job and I'm only making minimum wage and bottom line. And so they give them a reduced rate. But now, all of a sudden, that same person, all of a sudden, got a better job, getting twice as much, maybe $20, $25 an hour, maybe $30 an hour. But no one says next and get him and graduate that person, whether it be outside of the system, where he can go out and rent the property at the fair market rate, and then someone else could take that spot. But they haven't done that. They haven't done that. That's a fact. Nobody's questioning it. So you ask the candidate, what would you do? Would you require, if you will? Let's audit this out there. Let's make sure that the people, because the whole idea is just to give people an opportunity to start over again, so to speak. But we haven't, certain things we haven't done. So it's so important. It's so important. These are some times we really need to talk to these candidates, because you got to vote. Then we got initiatives on the table right now, today. Got some pretty we got one major one. In fact, I've been focusing on this issue even on my show, and this 105 aspect of it, about repealing repealing this initiative on i.e. Sanctuary states. So my thing is that, and there's nothing wrong with it. What is the definition of sanctuary state? A lot of times people identify it with the illegals, if you will, people who are here illegally. Okay, that's a fact. Everybody accept the fact that there's 10 million people living here, walking the streets every day, that are not here legally. And that's a fact. We are a body of laws. Whether you like them or not, the fact of the matter is, the only way you can change those people is to vote. You got to vote the right folks in or whatever, or talk about the issue and force them to talk about this issue to solve the problem. To solve the problem. So my thing was, let's talk about it. So I was going to have, I've had folks on both sides of the aisles sit down and talk about it. I've had folks who were very pro the repealing of this particular issue. But you know, the campaign was very interesting. They keep talking about profiling. Well, I can remember what profiling was right here in this community, in the corridors of the county district number 2. The whole issue of profiling came up because of black folks. They were profiling young African American males, point blank. Now all of a sudden there's an association with this whole issue of the repealing of the sanctuary state. Well, in all due respect, that was about the legal aspect of it, which is another issue that we need to solve. We need to sit down at the table and figure out what are we going to do. It's just as wrong to try to talk to a person about you allow. They're being allowed. They got 10 million folks here. They're tired of looking over their shoulders and this, that, and the other. But the fact that we got to talk about it. You know, pro or con, you still have to talk. Whatever the end of the day, if the deal comes out from saying, well, the Oregon is going to maintain, i.e., the sanctuary state, or if not that, they will not. If they don't maintain it, then guess what? What do we do? What do we do then? What do we do then? So, voting is a responsibility that we all have. That's a right that you have. And you need to exercise that right. Because some of the things that are happening during the time of voting is tough, especially with our media source and our talk show hosts. You've seen this in CNN and Fox. A lot of you don't even watch CNN and Fox. You've got your own CNN and Fox. You've got your own smartphone. You are, if you will, the person that either generates news or not, positive or negative. But there's got to be a point in time for us to live under one roof that we've got to agree to something that will prevent us from being tormented, if you will, and concerned about all of the shootings and this, that, and the other. You never know who's going to be next. We all have guns. We all have guns. And I was in the Marine Corps. And I know I had to have a gun. I was given a uniform. In fact, I always refer to myself from the standpoint that my great-great-grandfather was given a uniform and an assault weapon during the Lincoln administration. Remember that? That was the Civil War. The Civil War that this country had right after the Revolutionary War. And blacks were there. Over 300 and some odd thousand of them were part of that, part of the winning of the war. This Civil War aspect of it between the states. And right after that, after they did that, won the deal, I'll just be real quick like, Lincoln tried to basically, if Lincoln had lived and we went on and we expressed ourselves at the vote, which everybody did, and it was 40 acres and a mule for everybody. Anybody during that particular time, that's how they were able to get an army, because those were the perks that one would get and receive after the war. Well, blacks got those perks too. But then all of a sudden, Lincoln gets assassinated, and then the next president happened to have been the vice president, who happened to have been a Confederacy, who basically now is the president, who basically said, okay, fine, I'm going to repeal that law, just to blacks. Well, that was wrong. But what the point is, there's a lot of history here, and there's nothing wrong about talking about that history, because that talks to a solution. That talks to a solution. See, so at the end of the day, you vote on something. But those are laws on the books. And the guy happened to be I think it was Johnson or somebody like that, and he's the president. So the laws was on the book, like they are now, every day. But every time there's an election, that's where it is. It's all about the laws on the books. And the only way you can change that is your vote. Trust me, that one vote means a lot. So get out and vote, and vote. And if you want to participate in this process, you got to get out there and file to run for office. And that's what it's all about. And I'm sharing that with you today. And I really appreciate the fact that this show has given me that opportunity to articulate something for you to get that motivation to get out there and get involved. Get involved. This brother was in all due respect, he was a veteran just like myself. He was a corpsman. Let me tell you the respect that the Marines had for corpsmen out there in the field. His father was a lifetime member of the military. He was a recruiter also, too. Buried in Arlington, in the Arlington Cemetery, with his mom. Well, his wife, but his mom, this gentleman right here. He served. Disabled vet. Disabled vet. We both are. But you know what? This is my country. It's his country. It was his father's country. And I want people to understand that that's a fact, a life. I am no minority. I'm an American citizen, and I demand respect. So get out there and vote if you want to get to that particular point. That's the thing that's going to get this thing solid. Solid as a rock. Get out and vote. And we can deal with some of the issues that are still on the book that still tries to identify you as minorities and the wrong things that are being done to many Americans who happen to be black Americans. So that's my piece. That's what you get out and vote. You only have a few days to do that. Get out and vote. And if, in all due respect, once you get, and if you don't go out there and do that, please don't come to me talking about who did this and who did that. Just talk to me about one thing. When are you going to file or run for office? Or who did you vote for? And we can talk about that. But when you say who you vote for, I'm going to ask you point blank, why did you vote for that person? It's not about their looks and this, that, and the other. What do they bring to the table to deal with your issue? To solve some of these racist, hated kind of situations that we're stuck with here in this town, in this city, in this state, in this country. That the change is going to come with the vote. So get my word. That's my message. God bless. Take care. Thank you, my brother. Appreciate that.
Always an
Appreciate
honor.
that. Always an
Yes,
honor.
sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank
Yes,
you very
sir.
much, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Bruce.
Sure enough. Thank you. Thank the Moorish community for helping me on. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My man. We want to thank Brother Bruce Bashard, my friend, my brother, for coming on here with this Last Supper, giving you and I the wisdom that we need. Bruce blacked us to death today. He Afro-American us today. So before I get into my subject matter, I want everybody to listen to this, because we too have a constitution. And in Act 6 of our divine constitution and bylaws, know what you Ali said, with us, all members must proclaim their nationality. And we're teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Jew Ali the prophet to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Praise Allah and honor the prophet. I want to talk about some things today. I want to camelback off some of the things that Brother Bruce spoke on earlier. The first one I want to camelback on when he was talking about Portland, Oregon. I just got this book from a friend of mine. The title of this book is Dangerous Subject. And you can go to any library in Portland, Oregon right now, and they've given this book away. And when I looked at the back of the book, it's talking about the Oregon Trail. It's talking about when those of African descent who look just like me first came to Portland, or first came to Oregon. And when they first come to Oregon, there was a lot of laws that went up. And these laws that went up was in reference to you and in reference to me. And it's of the same spirit that I've been listening to the last couple of days when they was talking about those who got killed in a synagogue. It wasn't talking like when the European went to the church, sat in the church, and when everybody was praying, he got up and started killing. It wasn't that kind of spirit. It wasn't that kind of ether, because who was involved with it? So when the Asiatics moved here to Portland, Oregon, they put him in check. And when they put him in check, it was made known that Portland, Oregon is the only state in the Union that had racism in the Constitution. In the Constitution, it said about 6 o'clock in the evening, you and me, we had to get out of here. There was a sundown law. And if we got caught up in the sundown law, then that meant that we got killed. And I feel the same way in reference to the sundown law, in reference to the those of African descent getting killed in the church. When the European that did the killing, he lived. The European that did the killing, he lived. Every day, one of us is getting killed in our community, and when they get killed, nothing is done about it. Now, when I first heard about the synagogue, and I wrote a date down for you. We're going to talk about 1897, a year before my father was born, the first Zionist Congress, when they met. And when they met to get ready to fly. This flag that Ferdinand II gave them the authority to fly. Because when you begin to talk about Rebecca, when you begin to talk about Esau and Jacob, and how one of them, brother, sold the other birthright out, and in the mother's womb they said that there was 2 nations. There was 2 nations in the womb. So now we're talking about Jew. Brother, man, what do a Jew look like? Well, let me ask a question. Because, see, most of the brothers that I know up here, and most of the ones that I talk to, and you can't say that a Moorish American is anti-Semitic. You can't say that because we are not. You can't say that because when you begin to talk about the Jews, I talked earlier about Sammy Davis Jr. And when Sammy Davis Jr. was telling everybody back in the day that he was a Jew, they looked at him like he was crazy. They said, man, I don't know what's wrong with this dude. Something wrong with him. He's crazy. But then they went and took the blood test. They went and took the DNA. And all those Europeans that said that they was Jew, Sammy Davis Jr. was the only one that really was of Jewish blood, of Jewish DNA. Why? Because somebody stole somebody else's birthright. And now you got truth walking around in falsehood's clothing, or you have falsehood walking around in truth clothes. So we talking about learn to love instead of hate, because the National Security Force in the Moorish Zion Temple of America, our motto was the prevention of sin and crime. And know what you all say, it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and claim to the names and principles that delude to slavery. So now we're talking about the election. We're talking about voting. Know what you all told them more to vote. He said go to the poll. And he said you're not doing it under granted privilege. He said because a lot of times you have human rights and you have civil rights. And when you begin to talk about civil rights is a non-political issue. Civil rights is not even an issue that you could take to the United Nations. So you talk about human rights and you versus civil rights. I'm human. Because when you become human, that's when you take on form and pigmentation. So Allah made me just like he made you. So you got a first-class citizen and you got a second-class citizen. If Allah made me, then I'm a first-class citizen too. Because there's no one who is able to change man from the decent nature of his mother and father unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. Now we're going through change. Everybody wants to get to holler because this ain't transpiring with us. That's not transpiring with us, but trust me the next couple of days. Watch how many those of African descent that you see them running around in Halloween clothes. Watch December come. Watch how many people separate that Christmas thing. And next month in November, watch how many people celebrate Thanksgiving. What you are doing is just like that name you take on. You're taking on somebody else's concepts. You're taking on somebody else's ideologies. Noble Ali tell us that we don't speak, we march and counter-march. So we don't have to do no talking. We complaining because it's ourselves that we're complaining about. We are the ones that keeping us in the same condition that we're in because we're trying to be somebody other than ourselves. Now I'm listening to here today. I'm listening to my man Bruce's friend. He in here talking about racism. He's talking about the thing that's transpiring. He's going to get some trouble when he go home. Because when he go home, and that European wife that he got, get to tell him you're talking too much. You're saying too much. And he going to be messed up. But you don't have to impress me. I know you by your words, your works, and your deeds. So now everybody talking about hate. Talking about what's transpired up there with those that got killed in the synagogue. But that don't apply to us. Because I'm looking at the women that's talking about this. I'm looking at that girl Megan who's talking about some black face, and then I see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. This brother usually don't have too much to say about nothing, but now he's speaking out. He's speaking out because he see what's transpiring. So when you begin to look at these people that's coming on social media and talking about those so-called Jews who stole the birthright and saying that the United States, we need to change. We need to get better. We need to have some death penalties for the people that commit certain acts like that. You didn't say that when that took place with us in the churches. When they came in the church and killed all our people in there while they was in prayer, you didn't say that there. Why? Because you're talking about yourself. You are saying charity begins at home. You said that this is the first time in the history of America that you look and see the European nations going through the changes that they're going through. I was told this. They said when you look at a so-called Jew, he got a beard. And if you wear a beard, then the girl wearing the long dress. And when you look at a European that don't wear a beard, then the girl wearing a miniskirt. So you got to understand that a lot of people that took on our concept. Let me tell you again, the flag that's flying in Morocco, that flag really was going to be a Jewish state, just like they did in 1948 over in Israel. And you have to understand that Ferdinand II, Isabella's son, him and that council gave those who will call themselves Jew later on permission to fly the flag, because you got to understand, when we went into Spain in 7-11, we went into Spain as Moors. When we come out as Negro, colored, and black. And that is because somebody stole our birthright. The lesson of Esau and Jacob, who do it apply to? Nowhere in the history of mankind will you find someone like my man was just on the show. Almost 80 years old. He called us two things. He called us black, and then he called us Afro-American. That reminds me of those who call themselves Jew. They say Judaism is the religion. So you're telling me that your religion and your nationality is the same. So if your religion is Jewish, then what is your nationality? Because man today is what his forefathers were yesterday. But when we fell in Spain, two things transpired. You had Moses and you had Jesus. And those, now when you look in the book, in this back of this book right here, it tells you about the Protestants. Because Protestant really means protest. Now when you begin to talk about Protestantism here in Portland, Oregon, they already said right here that the fur industry and Protestant missionaries, once the Oregon Trail began, arrived large numbers of us in 1843. Just like we have our meetings at Matt Dishman. And they got a brother, they got a big picture of him in Matt Dishman. and that's his name, Matt Dishman. And he go back to the Vanport flood as I do my homework. But one thing that Matt Dishman couldn't do, that the rest of the officers could do, he was an Asiatic police, and he could not arrest Asiatics. The only person that Mac Dishman could lock up was those of African descent. And we understand that too. We understand that. Stop talking about what's transpired with other nations, what the government ain't doing, because Drew Ali told us, he said a silent brotherhood don't speak. We march and we counter-march. So what we're going to have to do, being that this is election time, we got to find a brother. We got to find a sister. We got to find somebody that we could put in office to be able to talk about the issues that we have. Like Brother Bruce. Bruce is a Republican. I vote with him because of his issues in the Moorish Science Temple of America. We have brothers that's Republicans. We have brothers that's Democrats. We have people that's independent. But Drew Ali told us to go to City Hall. He tells us to cast our vote, because we are citizens. Now, when you say you Negro, colored, and black, what do? You are function under granted privilege. That's why, boss, can I do this? Or boss, can I do that? But if you call yourself Negro, colored, and black, you have no place on earth that a citizen is bound to respect, because they place their trust upon names, dates, and issues. And over 10,000 years ago, you was Moorish. So if you're not Moorish today, and Drew Ali say these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But the book say, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be longer upon the earth land which the Lord thy God Allah has given thee. So who is your father? And who is your mother? Your father is the great God Allah. Allah is the father of the universe. Now who is your mother? Mother Earth is your mother, because man derives his name from the earth land. Chinese are from China, Germans are from Germany, and Vietnamese are from Vietnam. So you and I, we lost our birthright. We gave up our birthright just to gratify our lower self. So we have to understand that Noble Drew Ali in this Moorish Quran, he gave us Roman numbers. And he gave us Roman numbers because of Christianity and Judaism. Because when you begin to talk about Christianity and Judaism, you are talking about the Moabite nation. Because, see, Allah blessed us and gave us the blessing. And the blessing that he gave us was Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph by Mary. That's our genealogy. We go to church every day. And when we go to church, we read the King James Version. And when we read the King James Version, we got to understand that the 5 books of Moses, which is the Torah, is in your Bible. So because from the east comes all light. I listened to the rabbi. I thought he was a German. He might have been. I thought he was a Irish. He might have been. I thought he was a Portuguese or Dutch. He might have been. He took on that religion. But when you begin to talk in truth about Drew Ali said, from the east comes all light. And though the sun is hanging at high noon, the blind cannot see the light. So now you talk about anti-Semitic. Like I say, you don't tell the Moors that, because we don't have nothing bad to say about nobody. All we're teaching is nationality and divine creed. Your nationality is hooking you back up with the family of nations. When they say honor thy father and thy mother, that means that your father is the great God Allah and your mother is Mother Earth. If you call yourself Negro, if you call yourself colored, if you call yourself black, or if you call yourself Afro-American, because Africa is a continent. Africa is a continent with 52 or 54 nations there. What nation do you represent? What flag do you fly? Because everyone flies a particular flag. Now, when you begin to talk about European American, you never hear that. Now we know that they have St. Patrick's Day, and we know a lot of different other nationalities have their day, just like the Kennedys. They was Irish. And if they was Irish, they had the leprechaun. And everybody was wearing green. Just like the Chinese, they have their own holiday. You and I, we don't have nothing. Only holidays we have is one that's to our demise, but we'll take it on because of mental slavery, which we now have. So let's look at ourselves again. When you look at those who call themselves Jew, and if they didn't say that they was Jew, you look at them as a European. Because there was not a European in the East. See, from the East comes all life. He come from somewhere in Europe. Everybody have an origin from which they trace themselves. So let me tell you something else. I was in Vietnam. The brother just spoke on it. And I remember one day they called the 101st Airborne Division, so we had to go and bring a convoy in. We had to bring a convoy in because they said that we needed more ammo and we needed more weapons. And then one of the trucks turned over because we got into a firefight. Firefight when you're shooting, trying to kill. You know, they're trying to kill me every day because I was a medic. Those that looked just like me wore the same kind of uniform I wore, trying to kill me. If I try to save a European, it's all right. But when I try to save an Asiatic, they try to kill me. Now, the reason why I say Asiatic and European, because I don't know a white man. The only white flag I know is the one of freedom, and the only black flag I know is the one that killed roaches. So there's no such thing. The whole world once was called Asia. So you're Asiatic or you're a European. Ain't no in between. Now, the whole world once was called Asia. Later on, it became Europe. That's why, again, in the Bible, it talked about the 7 churches that was in Asia. It didn't say the 7 churches that was in Europe. And the reason why I say the 7 churches that was in Asia, because Europe at that time was not even in existence. Noble Drew Ali did something that nobody else did. He gave us a flag that flied in the United Nations that was taken down. He went to Woodrow Wilson and got that flag back for you and me. Because you say that you're black. You say that you're colored. You say that you're a Negro. And all of those that's 65 and over like me, you got mental slavery. Because you still calling yourself black. If you would give yourself a color, it would be brown. We talk about intelligence now. See, intelligence rule. And you have to understand that you're not honoring your father. You're not honoring your mother. When I went to school, somebody called you black, you better know how to fight because black was derogatory. In 1968, when Martin Luther King got killed, everybody will go out and put on their doors, soul brother. And you know good and well you can't be no soul brother because Sam and Dave back then. Sam and Dave sung the song about soul brother. So there's a whole lot that's going on. It's a lot of negative ether. And like I said, that a lot of this is coming behind your president. So you need to go out there and vote. You need to vote for people that have issues. And we need to send some people to school for political science so they can represent our issues because Drew Ali did something that nobody else did. He brought us a nationality. When you get a nationality, then you hook back up with the family of nations. You have a right. See, but if you don't, you have no rights that a citizen is bound to respect because the citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and is subject to all inferior named abuses and mistreatment that the citizens care to bestow upon them. Black lives don't matter because there's no such people as black. And until we keep calling ourselves Negro, colored, and black, the worst is yet to come. So in conclusion, I'd like to read from the back of the Moorish Holy Quran. And it says on this wise, the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple, know yourself and your Father God Allah, that you may learn to love instead of hate. Every man needs to wish upon his own vine and fig tree, the uniting of Asia. At this time, I recite the Moorish American prayer, the source from which we draw our strength. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Jew Ali. Amen. Wade in the water, wade in the water, Marley, wade in the water. Jew Ali done trouble the water.